peeps and creeps, welcome to Fright Club. Gav here with another episode of Monday Night Frights. And tonight I'm being joined once again by our co-founder, Mr. Danny Brown. Danny, what's the crack?
Hello. Same old, really. You know,
just
new
plodding on.
normal.
But today we're actually talking about Stephen King's It, which is quite a special film for me. And initial thoughts, without sort of getting too into details here, what's your kind of initial thoughts on
Well, it for me. It is it's the one, it's sort of the cliche line about it is that it's the one that makes you afraid of clowns when you're wee. But that is the case for me. Like,
yeah.
I remember it was my cousin her dad had it on VHS, and they brought it around one day and they were like, let's watch this. We're not allowed to watch this. Let's watch it. So of course you're immediately like, yeah, let's watch it. But no, shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have done it. Absolutely terrified me. Just found, like, Tim Curry's performance in it is amazing, and it is so terrifying. And yep, put me off clowns for ages, and it's one of those ones that, yeah, you remember all the key scenes and stuff, and then even the remake as well was the same. You can remember Pennywise is a very iconic character in horror, and it was very interesting then when they announced that they were going to be redoing it. It was kind of like, well, you can't beat Tim Curry's performance. Like, he is Pennywise, but Skarsgård proved that you can do it. There's nothing wrong with revamping a character like that. So yeah, but no, it's the one that put me off clowns, like 100%. So stupid.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you said there, and we're going to jump right into that in a minute or two. But yeah, so the original novel, obviously written by Stephen King in 1986. I think he started writing it in 1981. Finished it in 85, and then it was published in 86. And just before we're going to go any further, I wanted to show my edition of it.
Have you finished it? Because I know you had been reading it, but have you finished it?
Yeah, I read that about 5 years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is actually a second edition. It was released in 1987. It's the hardback edition. I inherited it off my sister actually about 15 years ago when she moved from Ireland to America. It was one of a couple of Stephen King books she had in her collection, and I was like, I'm having them. So yeah, it's class. Like, the dust jacket's wrecked, and it's just, there's classic Stephen King playing the guitar in the back.
You want to know something? You're probably going to be ashamed. I've only ever read one Stephen King book.
That's all right. That's no problem.
I intend to read. I do intend to read more of them, because I would like to read more of them. But it's The Green Mile.
Oh yeah.
Because I love The Green Mile. Like, I absolutely love the film, and the book as well reduced me to tears. Like, I really want to read the Seasons. I love to read Seasons because I love Stand By Me, and what else is in there? Apt Pupil and stuff like that there. So I'd really like, yeah, exactly. So I do want to read more King, but I've only ever read the one. So, but I know you love your King.
I do. Well, I've only, like, I own a lot of copies of his books. I've got a few hardbacks, and I've mostly paperbacks, that I've collected over the years and stuff. But I haven't read, like, I'm not an expert. I haven't read all his novels. And most of the ones that I have read, I have enjoyed. I think that my favorite is Salem's Lot. Like, it's proper scary.
Yeah.
But he does drift on a bit, and it can become a bit of a chore sometimes with his bigger books. It's difficult to finish them. But with it, like, I think it's 800 pages or somewhere around there. I read the first 500-600 in no time, but the last couple of hundred was a bit of a challenge, I must admit. But
yeah,
fantastic book, and I would definitely recommend it. It's a fantastic book, especially after watching the movies. Like, you can it's a lot easier to sort of take in now that you've watched the movies, I think. But yeah, give me a shout if you ever want to read it. It's you can
definitely
take it with you.
I might do the audiobook for it. I might do because I've started doing Audible. So
yeah, that's right. You were saying.
Not that we're sponsored by them or anything, but nudge wink wink.
Not yet, nice. But we'll see. I think we're punching above our weight.
Yeah, I know. But one can dream.
It obviously, for anyone, I'm pretty sure everyone that's watching this knows what it's about, but we'll just give it a real brief sort of description of the story. The original novel is set in the 60s and is about 7 school kids that sort of become kind of terrorized by this evil entity, that can disguise itself as different monsters that the kids are scared of. So it sort of manifests itself into their worst fears. It does normally sort of look like Pennywise the Dancing Clown, who was obviously played by Tim Curry, and then Bill Skarsgård in the second adaptation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the novel, much like the original miniseries, is told from the narratives of different timelines as the children and then as adults, and it kind of jumps back and forth. The book is still very easy to follow. It's not like it's like what timeline's this. It's it's a very easy read in terms of that there. The way the story's told, and the miniseries was released in 1990. It was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, who actually directed Season of the Witch as well, and he worked on the original Halloween. And I think he directed Fright Night 2 as well.
Okay.
You were saying about this movie was terrifying because when you're a kid watching it, like a clown is supposed to be friendly and it's supposed to be like, oh yeah, clown, it's like happy
you go to the
birthday,
circus and entertain you, and exactly, and then
entertainer. But what I think they did amazing with this is that, and a lot of people now would criticize. Well, I wouldn't say they criticize it, but they would sort of kind of maybe be a bit negative about Tim Curry's performance in the sense that he wasn't scary enough. We'll talk about the comparisons in a bit, but he's he's not really that scary. But whenever you were a kid and you saw that,
absolutely. The thing is, him as Pennywise is so much scarier than what he eventually turns into at the end of the film. I think I remember even at the time being young, when it gets to the end of the film and he turns into like giant like crab lice thing. Yeah, you're just like, what's that? Like it for me, I can remember it kind of took me away from the initial fear because it just did look so just fake, rubbery, like too much. Whereas Pennywise was very real looking. He was like a clown, and then would draw you. He lures them in, and then it just he's just a big creep.
Yeah, I think one of the scary things that I think the actual opposite in the sense that the scary thing about him is that he is so normal. He other than there's a couple of scenes where you see his teeth and his eyes go a bit weird, and obviously towards the end his makeup changes. He's got the claw hands. Towards the end of the movie, it changes a bit, and his makeup becomes more sort of monstrous. And there's a couple of scary scenes in there with the fangs and stuff, but for the most part, he's just a normal clown, and I think that's what is scary about it because he's just the normal. He's very normal, but obviously the second adaptation that was released in 2017 and part 2 in 2019, went full proper scary with the clown, and we'll talk about that in a wee second. But it actually, even though it's not great, let's be honest, the miniseries isn't very good in terms of.
No, you can remember the iconic moments, but everything in between.
Yeah, it's a bit like everyone will be like, "Oh, Pennywise scared the shit out of me. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that terrified me for life. Oh yeah, what was your favorite scene? And what was this and what was that?" Oh, and then people are kind of like, "Oh, just the bit where he had the fangs and the bit at the end." And
there's the sewer scene, the balloon. I remember the balloon popping in the library and all the blood coming down.
Yeah, and there's the bit with the guy's head in the fridge as well. And
I don't remember. I can't remember that.
Yeah, I can't actually remember what cast member it is, but it's the guy that dies at the start. His head's in the fridge. And there's a couple other scenes. There's the bit where he's hugging. They're hugging each other, and they think it's the girl Beverly, and it turns out to be him. And then that kind of pans back, and it is quite creepy. It's not very scary, but it is more creepy than anything. But I was actually reading a little bit about it today, and the budget wise and stuff. Apparently, it was like a 12 million budget, which I can't figure. I didn't believe it when I read it, but yeah, it's a $12 million budget, and
which I wonder what that would be now. In terms of like inflation and stuff. I wonder what that would have been. What kind of budget that was now.
I have no idea, but I mean, 12 million is a lot of money back in 1990.
Oh. Yep.
I mean, half of that might have been Tim Curry's wage for playing Pennywise. You never know, like, but it aired on ABC, so they had to kind of tone down a lot of the blood and a lot of the gore and a lot of the kind of innuendos and stuff that kind of did appear in the book and that appear in the second adaptation. But it actually got nominated for a couple of Emmys as well, and I don't know what Emmys was nominated for, but I just had it written down saying that it was nominated for those. But yeah, so it's kind of like you watch it now and you think this isn't as good as I remember, but
No.
you know, it was still very impactful, and obviously Tim Curry's performance is amazing as Pennywise and is very, very iconic.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing out of that was that the kids were, I think the kids are better than the adults. The adults are just, I just think they're not very good actors. It's very strange. It's very weird.
I think in both instances, I think for both films, that's true for both. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, I love all the actors that were cast. I feel like the casting was done really well for the films, the part 1 and part 2. But I feel like the kids still, because they have more screen time overall, I think, even in part 1 and part 2, because obviously the first one is solely about them, and then part 2 there's still flashbacks to them as kids and then them as adults. So I feel they get more screen time and they get more times with the role, whereas the adult roles are a bit, you know, there's not as much. You almost don't feel as invested in them as adults as you do as when they're the, you know, the kids taking on their fears and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think that the casting in the film is fantastic. Like the kids and the adult, the casting's amazing, and the actors are fantastic as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kids, the first movie with the kids is definitely better than the second movie with the adults. And the miniseries, which the main difference between the two adaptations is that the miniseries is one long film that was divided into two to play over 2 nights, but the timeline jumps like the book. Whereas with the recent adaptation, they decided to make 2 films and just do the first one about the kids and the second one about the adults, which makes more sense and I think really works well for the story. And it definitely worked out better that way rather than trying to do what the miniseries did. But some of the main differences between the two, we'll not get into Pennywise just yet. We'll talk about the differences in Pennywise in a minute. But obviously the 2 films, the 2 timelines, and with the film they were able to they didn't really have any boundaries in terms of the blood and the guts, and they could do whatever they want really in terms of being scary.
They got to explore more of the fears and stuff, because I can't remember in the miniseries, but do they show as many of the like manifested fears as they did in the film?
And there's definitely a werewolf, there's definitely a mummy, and the old lady, and I want to say the drunk guy as well.
Oh, the leper one.
I think, and I can't remember what the other one is. There's obviously a few more as well, but I just for the life of me, I can't remember off the top of my head. But they do. It's just with the miniseries, what they do is instead of they'll just show like a quick scene and then they'll fade into the next scene before anything really happens. And you're because they play with flashbacks and that, and it cuts between, it'll go from the kids being attacked, say, by the werewolf, and it'll just fade into the adult, Richie. Then thinking back, being like, oh, I was thinking about that, and that's, why we've seen it, because he was having a daydream or whatever. Which, it's a bit kind of formulaic. It's not the greatest way to tell a story, but in the film, they show more of that, and they
linger on it, and you actually, you get a bit more immersed in it because you get to see it longer. Because that's even, I rewatched a bit of the part 1 last night, and the leper fear that Eddie sees, and it's like ripping out of like the nose orifice, and his dirty old fingers handling the pill and stuff, and it's gross, really, really gross. But I honestly I couldn't. That's the thing. It's been that long since I've watched the miniseries. I'm kind of like, did they show all those fears in the same way? But they definitely didn't show them in the same way. The fact that I can't recall them. The only thing I can really recall properly is Pennywise, and then his final form at the end of the film.
Yeah, well, they couldn't show as much as what they could in the movie, basically, because they were restricted with it being a TV movie. They kind of had, their hands tied a little bit there. But also with the movie, because they changed the setting, so they ramped it from the 60s to the 80s, and then from the 90s to present day, which again made sense, and it kind of just made it a bit new. They were able to play around with different music and stuff, time.
That's it. You get some real nice, you get real nice pin drops and stuff in there, and I think as well it kind of rides on the kind of, which again you have a very apt t-shirt for. It rides on that kind of Stranger Things sort of hype, and obviously we've got what do you call him from Stranger Things is in it as well.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So I think it does play a bit on that. There's a real kind of romanticizing of the 80s at the minute in films and TV. So I feel that it definitely appeals a lot more to do it in that rather than the 60s.
Yeah, like there's definitely a whole, as you say, romanticism about the 80s. Like people they just love the 80s now, and it just made sense. I think if they had done it back in the 60s again, it would have kind of felt kind of similar to what they've already done before. And there's been a lot of those kind of coming of age movies set in the 60s anyway, with the kids. So it makes sense, and I think it worked out well.
Oh yeah, but, definitely.
I would say, obviously, since 1990, things of technology has advanced to the stage now where they can pretty much do anything on screen, and clearly they had more to work with the films in terms of like Pennywise and what they could do with the jump scares. The actual mini series didn't actually really have any jump scares. It's more about just Pennywise being, they see Pennywise standing in front of them, and he's like, says something to them, and then it's just creepy more than like jump scary. Whereas with the new films, they really go for the jump scares, and not in a like cheap throwaway type of way. Like all the jump scares are good. They pay off, and they're really well done, especially in the first one with the kids. They 100%. Make sense, and they're just really good. And I didn't actually realize this, but the guy that shot it is the same guy that shot Old Boy, and he shot a lot of Chan Wook Park's films.
Korean Old Boy, or
Korean, yeah.
Thank
his name's Chung Hoon Chung is his name, and he did Old Boy, and he did The Handmaiden, and he did Thirst, and he did a lot of Chan Wook Park's films. So I mean, that's why it looks so amazing, because obviously Old Boy is fucking awesome.
Yeah, Old Boy's one of my favorites. So yeah,
stunning. We'll maybe do some Korean.
I will happily talk about the Vintage trilogy, definitely.
Oh, for sure, man, for sure. What were you gonna say there? Were you gonna say something?
No, it just as you said, in terms of the production qualities between, we obviously one's made for TV, the other one's film and modern film at that, and it's very the actions of because the camera doesn't really necessarily move around too much, but the jittery motions of everything within the frame is what kind of really adds, I think, to the overall kind of scares and stuff. It's all very it moves. It's like very sporadic, fast wee movement, and then it'll be very still, and you kind of linger on it a minute, and then something will just very,
Yeah, no, definitely the camera does move quite a bit with the jump scares, and obviously that adds to the sort of again, scares the shit out of you when it does. But another thing I thought would be as a main difference between the two, it's probably a bit unfair to say this about the miniseries because they had their hands tied so much in terms of like the technology and all that sort of stuff. But one thing you could say that's a negative about the miniseries is it's just written too much like a novel, if you know what I mean. It's not really the best adapted screenplay. They basically just literally tried to lift the novel off the page, which isn't always the best thing to do. And I think with the film they did it well because they worked the two stories into the two timelines into the two movies, and the fact that the first movie isn't two timelines or sort of jumps back and forth, from flashbacks, it's really slow. It takes a long time before things happen, and it's just weird to watch now after all these years, because it's quite a slow paced movie compared to the 2017 and the 2019 movie, which I just think are paced really well. Obviously, better quality, it's a lot scarier, and the cast is fantastic. But I just think that the pacing of the original miniseries is plodding along too much, and it feels like even when you watch like part one of that miniseries, it feels like you've watched like 3 or 4 movies, and you're kind of like, oh, I have to watch part two now, and you flick it on because whenever I watched it about 6 months ago, that's what I felt like after the first part. I was just like, it feels like I've been here for like 5 hours watching this. This is crazy. But that was definitely a negative that I wrote down in my notes today, because I did feel like the pacing of it wasn't quite right. One thing I would say about the one thing that I think the miniseries does really well is that opening scene. Obviously, the opening scenes are very similar. The Georgie scene where the boat goes down and it goes down in, and then we first meet Pennywise. It is very similar in terms of how it's written, and there's obviously different dialogue, but it's kind of set up very, very similar. But what I would say is that after that, when Georgie is dead, obviously, I do feel like the first adaptation does a really good job emotionally of showing Bill being that grieving older brother, feeling the guilt, and trying his best to, I suppose, seek revenge on this evil clown, which they find out is the evil clown as the movie progresses. But I think in the movie it maybe just doesn't go fully emotional with that. With the movie, I think it plays on the grip rather than about Bill, which I don't know if that was something they said that they wanted to do, or they wanted, maybe that was a decision that they made early on, that they would make it less about Bill and make it more about the group dynamic. It works in the film, but I just feel like the miniseries sort of does it a wee bit better in terms of the emotional kind of the way it puts the emotion on the screen. What do you think? Or
no, I would agree with that, because even as I watched the first one, it kind of the film you only get there's the moment in the first and the second one where he's in the basement and he sees his brother down there and he's kind of like rotten and stuff, and you get that kind of moment where he's kind of reflecting on his dead brother. And then you have the moment in the first one where he's trying to explain to his dad that the only place he could be is in the Barrens. The only place he could have walked out to is the Barrens, and then you get to kind of see the parents, how they're reacting to it.
Yeah.
But again, that's really the only moment. So you get that kind of moment. You get to see that real emotion and grief for the death of the brother.
Yeah.
But that's, as I said, it's been that long since I've watched the first one that I'm kind of, the only thing that stands out for me about the first one is Tim Curry's performance. And again, as you said, the sewer scene is the main one that stands out in both.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to Pennywise now. Actually, I mean, obviously this is the main thing about the movie is the character of Pennywise, and Tim Curry, absolutely iconic actor, iconic performance. I love Tim Curry and pretty much everything he's ever been in. He's amazing, and I know you're a big Frankenfurter fan, like.
I love Rocky Horror. Yeah, absolutely love Rocky Horror Picture Show. But even like the fact that he's the voice of Nigel Thornberry and the Wild Thornberrys, and I haven't seen Clue. It's on my list, but I haven't seen Clue.
I was just about to say that's probably my favorite performance of Tim Curry. Like Wadsworth, he's just unreal, unbelievable. Watch it as soon as you can. It's a fantastic movie. But it's on
the list.
Yeah, he's even brilliant in. Have you ever seen Legend? Ridley Scott.
Oh yes, as the big like Satan character. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, amazing in that. Like you wouldn't even know it's him because he's wearing like a big prosthetic chin and obviously the big
chin, the massive horns, and class.
Fantastic performer, and just amazing actor. And Pennywise, definitely one of his most iconic performances. He sort of reminds me. There's obviously clear differences between his Pennywise and Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise. The main thing being that we were saying about him being kind of like a normal clown. Most of the time, there's a few times where he kind of becomes a bit of a monster, but for most of the time, he's just like a normal clown. He's got that deep, raspy kind of, almost like a gangster voice,
Proper like, hey there, Georgie.
Yeah, exactly.
He
reminds me of like Krusty the Clown. He's kind of that like.
Yeah.
You can imagine him Pennywise, you know, you could see that performance and go, yeah, he was a clown, you know, who was down on his luck and started smoking
I
and
feel
maybe
like
snorting coke
he
and doing bad things, and you know his life
he,
went tits up.
he draws more on, I think, like the serial killer ideal of a clown. Like
Yeah,
he's kind of, the what do you call John Wayne Gacy, kind of playing it that
yeah,
way.
yeah,
I feel like the kind of, you're going to be okay because I'm a clown, but I'll also kill you. Whereas I feel with the other Pennywise, it's very much like it's more like an evil creature. It's more creepy. Skarsgård's more creature like, whereas I feel like Curry's more serial killer-y, you
yeah.
know.
You could definitely imagine Curry's Pennywise sitting in the corner smoking a big cigar, just being sleazy, and you know that just feels like that's that. Yeah, you're right. Like a serial killer, kind of like devious planning ahead, rather than being like I'm a monster, you know, and I'm just going to eat you type thing. And
Yeah,
that's what they play on. They sort of play on his charm and his wit, and obviously his humor as well. I mean, he's very comical in it, and he's brilliant at it because he's a comic genius. But Skarsgård, it's all just creepy, and I'm a monster. And in the first one, Pennywise very much is a clown who kind of turns into a monster, whereas it Skarsgård is he's a monster, and this image
Mhm.
of a clown is just an image that he takes to try to get the kids to come closer to him so he can eat them, basically. And you can see that because Skarsgård's performance is
Excellent.
it's amazing. Like it is really
So
amazing, and I feel kind of bad sort of comparing it to Tim Curry because I love Curry so much, but like
they're two very
Skarsgård,
individual performances, very, very individual performances. But
yeah,
Skarsgård is he's so animated, but then he can also, there's a thing, as I said, watching it last night, I was kind of like, it's amazing how much when he's trying to lure the kids in, he's so childlike and just like wondrous, and he gets all giggly and just like
mm,
he gets fun. But then when the kids are drawn in enough, he switches off. You see him just go like, he goes dead eyed and one eye toots out and he's
mm,
dribbling and
mm,
he just stops. And then the creature comes out, he just and jumps on them, and it's such that false sense of security that you get from him being like this fun, active, zany clown, and then straight away just turns into a horrible, horrible creature.
yeah. No, I'm really glad that they kind of went in a different direction and didn't try to just replicate Curry's sort of comical, sort of normal performance. Like I'm really glad that they went, no, we need to make him I suppose more like the book version. That he is a bit more kind of creepy in the book. You know, he is a bit more terrifying in the book, I think, and I think that's what they wanted to go with. And like Skarsgård is unreal. Like the way he moves his arms and all, and I mean,
When
obviously
he's dancing.
there's a bit of CGI there when he's moving really fast towards the camera. But
Yeah,
like he did all that with his arms, and as you say, his tooty eye goes one out as class, and the way he
yeah.
moves his mouth, you know, that smile that he can do is just it's fantastic, and just the way he looks up, you know, he's maybe looking down, he looks up, his eyes, he's really acting a lot with his eyes. He's a fucking brilliant actor, and I think the role's amazing,
Okay.
and he really made it his own. And
He
a
did.
lot, even like his gear, like the
Mm.
hair. It's not a traditional clown where it's not, you know, like the typical clown, but it is kind of still got that sort of shape, and then the sort of Victorian collar and all, and
Yeah.
just the design. I just think
It's
it's
more
fantastic.
his design's more Curry's is more traditional clown. His design, I think, is more like it's like a mime. I think it's like old French mime
Yeah,
kind of style with the, as you say, big collar, the ruffles and sleeves, and down on the bottoms of the trousers and stuff. Um, yeah, it's more of a dated look, I think, compared to the Curry one, but it really adds to the overall kind of creep factor of him. And even the lines and stuff, the way the lines draw down from the top of the bulbous head onto the eyes, and as the film progresses, you see all the cracks starting
yeah,
to come out in the makeup, but then you realize that it's deeper than the makeup. It's actually like in his flesh, all these cracks and stuff, and he just looks start all horrible and withered looking
yeah.
as the film moves
The
on.
costume as well adds to the fact that he is ancient. You know, he's supposed to be an
Yeah,
ancient creature, and they show a lot of the kind of like it's more so I think in the second movie where they show the picture of him as a man, You know,
Yes.
like it's
Yeah. And then they
Skarsgård.
get the flashback in the
Yeah,
like Gypsy Caravan of him
yeah,
putting the makeup and all on, but then
yeah,
his flesh is like tearing away and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Would love to have seen more of that. I think there's probably some deleted scenes there that I don't know if there. I think the director says he wants to release like a super cut where it's
Okay.
going to be like 6 hours or more, and it's going to be both movies with all the deleted stuff that they had to cut out. And if that happens, like oh man, can't
Definitely
wait.
watch it. Yeah.
Definitely watch that. Like, and I just as creepy as it is, not knowing much about a creature, I want to know. You know, I'd love to see that
A
because
bit more.
you
Yep.
never got that from the first
But
adaptation. So
that's the thing. I think if obviously with more, as I said, I've only read the one King book, but I've kind of read a bit about like everything else that's involved. And there's the idea of like there's like the tortoise, like the
yeah,
there's
yeah,
like a god, a heavenly
turtle.
tortoise,
Yeah, it's like a yeah,
heavenly turtle, and then the orbs that you see inside Pennywise, they're like they thrive on fear and death and stuff like that, isn't it? They're like at war with each other. So there's the whole other world. I mean, King's already got written, pre-planned that you could explore.
yeah. It's weird. The book's kind of the end of the book does drift off into that kind of even like real weird mythical sort of you'd about the turtle and all, and it's weird. I'll have to reread it, but I just remember finding it difficult to finish the book,
Yeah,
even though I absolutely loved it and the whole story of the kids and their friendship, and it just brought me back to being a kid growing up in Ballymena and just being, going out all day. You'd go out with all your mates and you'd go sort of walking about and you'd end up finding things and you'd bring stuff back home, and it was just a real simple time. And obviously back when this is set was even more simple, but like just that idea of kids coming together and being friends, and they're all outcasts to a certain extent. They've all been
yeah.
sort of
The
either
Losers
bullied.
Club. They're
Yeah,
the
yeah, of
Losers
course,
Club,
the,
and
the
yeah,
losers club. They're all losers,
yeah.
but they're being bullied, obviously, and and
But that's what brings them all together,
brings
and
them together.
yeah.
We didn't actually
But
mention
it's
we didn't mention the bullies actually.
yeah, because they're a big part of it. What do you call the main sort of bully whose dad's a police officer, and then is it
The
he was it he gets locked does he kill him? He gets blamed for killing him and then he gets locked up
Yeah, he gets the and then
and then
comes to
he
him later on.
escapes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he gets blamed for
Mm.
a lot of the murders,
Yes.
and then obviously Pennywise comes to him later on,
Mm.
and yeah, Stephen King loves his bullies. Like a group of bullies tends to always appear in his books, and he must have been bullied when he was a kid. I don't know, but yeah, the bullies are great, and
Yep.
both actually I
Yeah.
think
Yep. Really good performance there.
But yeah, so the main difference is I'm not going to do a whole which one do I prefer because I just think it's unfair. I love them both. I just feel
There's
like Bill Skarsgård's is just I think in 20 years that'll be looked upon, even not even 20 years, in 5 years,
yeah.
his Pennywise will be looked upon as being an iconic version of a
I mean,
horror villain up there with
I
all the icons. And you even see it
I
now.
think already is. He already is. People have tattoos of him and all
Yeah,
already, and you see all the artworks and stuff, and it's always the two of them together. I don't think people do necessarily go, "Oh, this one's better than this one." They're two unique performances,
yeah,
and they're both as good as each other because they do take on such different approaches with the characters.
yeah,
But it's not, but they're done both so well as well. It's not like, oh, they're so different, but one's shy, one's not. They're both great, both fantastic performances.
both great in their own rights. But yeah, you're right about he's right up there now in pop culture. I mean, you go into toy shops and you see wee
Mhm.
plushes of Pennywise, and you're like, he's
Yep.
like a killer clown. Why are you selling? You know what I mean? Why are you
But
selling plushes to kids? Or
that's the thing. They're like even back in the 80s and stuff. Like I don't think the original it got any sort of merchandise releases. But you think about like Alien and RoboCop and Terminator. Like those weren't kids' movies, but they still
no,
got toys.
I know it's
You
weird. The
know,
Alien
so,
one's always a famous one. You see the ads going around. It's like kids are at 6 or 7. They're playing with the xenomorph, and you're just like, you've
not a
never
kids'
seen this
movie.
movie, or you're not supposed to see this movie, but why are you selling toys? It's bizarre, like, but I kind of miss that. I do miss that from movies today, where back in those days, every movie had some sort of line of merchandise.
Yep.
But yeah,
That's
so
it. But Pennywise is he's definitely become a part of pop culture, and that is especially for Skarsgård's one. You know, he definitely made the role his own, and is fantastic performance. Best performances all around from all of them, but he shines through it all because he is so his movements are so manic, and his dialogue is so just how he can go from real childish enthusiastic fun to just terrifying.
mhm.
Absolutely terrifying.
I remember watching the trailer for the first movie, the 2017 one, and I actually watched it in the kitchen with Janine, and she shit herself. But just that opening scene where you see the boat, I think was part of the trailer, and then there was a part in it when Pennywise comes up from the water, the sewer, and you see his eyes and he's wet, and then he just runs at the camera. And I mean, it was just a brilliant trailer, and as well, I mean, the people behind the marketing knew
Did
what
a
they were
great.
doing. They knew what they
Yep.
were doing. The way they marketed the film, just everything about it was spot on, and I loved it. I preferred the first one to the second one. The adults were great, you
Yeah.
know, Bill Hader and all, and Jessica Chastain, and they were fantastic. But I just was drawn a bit more towards the kids because it reminded me of being a kid out on the bike, and it was just
Yeah.
I think the dynamic between the clown and the kids worked better than the clown and the adults, really, because
No, I'd agree with that. The scene actually in both of them, the TV movie and the new ones, is the Chinese. Right, when they're in the Chinese and everything
yeah,
starts like crawling and changing and stuff. That I really like that scene with the adults. I think that's a really good scene in both adaptations. But no, you're right. Definitely the first one I think definitely holds up a, not a lot better, but better. And as you say, there's I think there is that real connection, especially if you were like a nerdy kid growing up, but you had like your gang of mates. Then yeah, you can definitely associate I think with them. You
yeah.
know.
There has been rumors of there might be doing a spin-off or like a prequel in terms of, you know, where did Pennywise originally come from, or the creature that is Pennywise, you know, where did he come from and what's his origins backstory. And I think there's been some rumors about that. I don't know if there's much truth to it. It feels like maybe it's just somebody throwing a random rumor out there and seeing if it lands. But
I was wondering because I went to see the way they did the reboot of Pet Cemetery,
mhm.
and there's a bit in it where they're driving back home, but there's a sign for Derry,
Mhm.
a very very intentionally placed sign for Derry, and I was like, is
Yeah,
this going to be? Are they going to start crossing over King properties? Because I think they did intend to do that with Dark Tower, but then it
yeah.
sort of flopped.
Well,
Um,
in the movie Dark Tower, there is a lot of nods to a lot of Stephen King books, and there's actually a sign that says the word Pennywise. I don't know, or there's a his face or something. But
yeah.
it's the same in the novels, The Dark Tower. There's a lot of crossovers, and even in his other novels as well. I mean, in Pet Cemetery, the start of the book, they mentioned something about a rabid dog in one of the
Uh,
towns near, which is Cujo, obviously. So there's a
yeah.
lot of crossovers in his novels, and that's why I love King, because he's got his own kind of universe set around kind of
Yeah.
Derry, Maine, Bangor, those kind of places. But also, I just wanted to say, I'd be mad. Imagine if it was like Derry from here. You know, if there was like
That's. I
Pennywise
mean,
made it Derry, Northern Ireland.
he gets head kicked. Then no one take him seriously.
He'd
He
come out.
just.
He'd come out of the sewer and he'd be like, "Fuck this! I'm going back." Like,
Yep. That's it. It's like someone you go up to somebody and be like, your worst fear, and they'd be like, "Do you know who my dad is?" Just straight away. No one take him. To be fair, right? If if Pennywise was to appear to you and manifested as your fear, what would he appear as? What would be the thing that appears in front of you?
wow, that's a good question. You're basically trying to get me to open up my fucking worst fears here.
Open up, come on. Open to
Uh,
the group.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I can't think off the top of my head.
I think immediately I would probably be like clowns. I don't like them. I still don't like them even to this day. I'm still not like I would go to. No, I probably wouldn't go to circuses. To be fair, I don't like them. There's too much. I've because of it, and then because I do listen to and watch like a lot of stuff about serial killers and stuff, and I've seen all the stuff about Gacy. I'm like, nope, fuck them, don't like them. But
Yeah,
I'm trying to think what would be. Uh, you know what actually it would be cows.
just a random cow.
Don't like them. No, I was chased through a field by cows when I was younger, and I've never trusted them since. So see, Pennywise would manifest as a really angry cow
Yeah.
for me, and yep,
Fair enough.
ship myself and run away.
Fair enough. I mean, you've basically just judged the whole species of cows just from one answer.
Based off a moment. To be fair, it was like calving season, and they were just looking after the babies. But no, see the reaction, the way they like charged at you. Fuck that. No.
See, if that cow was here now, and I asked that cow, what would you see as your worst fear? It would be you.
Be me.
Like, oh, that
me coming up the field.
He was trying to attack my calf, and it was like, and he was just saying hello, but obviously the cow.
I was just trying to walk back through the field to my friend's house, and they looked at us, and we looked at them, and next thing they just charged, and had to run down through the field.
You were trespassing on their land, so they've got a right to chase you. But anyway, you're still here, so that's the main thing. But yeah, I don't know. Clowns, I'm not really scared of clowns. Although obviously Pennywise scared the shit out of me. But I'm not really like scared of clowns. Like I don't go to the circus for other reasons. But I don't know. Maybe some sort of sea creature. I don't know. I'm scared of the ocean. That's like my worst fear is like the deep dark ocean. Where
the sea just comes in on you.
Just complete black all around you. That's kind of like. That's just horrible. That's the scariest thing to me. So probably some mad sea creature. I don't know, but yeah, it's a good question. Anybody who's watching the video, if you want to put in the comments below, what your worst fears are, that'd be.
How would Pennywise manifest to you?
It's good shit. But yeah, so no, that was a good chat. I think we're going to finish up here. I'm going to put you in the spot. I know we said earlier we weren't going to pick who was the best Pennywise, but fuck it, just tell me. Who do you prefer, Bill Skarsgård or Tim Curry?
I'm probably gonna go Tim Curry.
Oh.
Probably gonna go Tim Curry. I think because I just like I think Skarsgård's performance is a masterclass in acting, in like creature acting. Like the way he moves, the way he speaks, as you say, the acting in the face and all, it's superb. I just love Tim Curry. I love him. Yeah. Absolutely love him.
I mean, I've got a big soft spot for Tim Curry. I love him as well, and everything that he's ever been in. And I love his version of Pennywise. But if I have to be put on the spot and I have to pick who's better in terms of the character and what the character represents, I'd go with Bill Skarsgård just because it's a scarier performance.
His is better. Yeah. But I love Curry.
Yeah.
Curry.
I feel like maybe some older people would definitely say Tim Curry just because they have that nostalgic. If you're in your 30s or 40s, you're probably going to say, "Oh, Tim Curry, nobody can beat Tim Curry," and that his Pennywise was the best. And no matter what, they're always going to say that anyway. But I think deep down, I think for me, Bill Skarsgård's performance is just unbelievable, and brilliant. And if there is going to be other spin-offs or things happening, like I'm all for it. Like we'll see what happens. Hopefully, obviously they'll do it with love and care, which you could tell the filmmakers with the new adaptations really had a love for the original novel and the character of Pennywise. But yeah, so
100%. Yeah.
All good, man. Thanks for joining us tonight again. I enjoyed talking about Stephen King's It. As I said, anybody watching this, if you want to comment, feel free to comment. Tell your friends about.
Let us know your favorite.
Yeah, tell us your favorites below. So you're probably already following us on Instagram if you've watched this. Hopefully you are. And please follow us on Twitter too, at The Fright Club NI. Check out the website, www.thefrightclubni.com. And check out next week's episode every Monday night at 9 p.m. Until then, stay safe. See you next time. Cheers, guys.
Bye, guys.